You ever have your mind set on something and you're sure that what you believe should happen will happen, and then someone talks you out of it? Not with an emotional plea or irrational tirade, stomping the feet, holding the breath, but rather a cool, calm logic and sound reasoning. This seems to be what is happening in our scriptures this morning. Blessed children of God, the mercies which pour over us every day, every minute, from our loving Heavenly Father are too numerous to count. One of the most amazing feats of grace and compassion the Lord demonstrates is His ability to be reasoned with. We have a reasonable God. Imagine for a moment if the clay pot were able to speak to the potter who created it and then say something like this: I think that my handle should be on the other side rather than where you have placed it. Now, continuing to envision this fantasy, living in such a world where something created, like a pitcher pot, is able to speak directly with its creator, and the creator, of course, having the ability to hear and understand what the pot is saying, says back to the clay pot, why do you believe that I should change my design of what you should be? Well, of course, the piece of clay would answer, remember, you are going to give this to a left-handed person, and I would be easier to pour out my contents for a left-handed person if the handle were set on the other side. Oh, I see, says the potter. That would make more sense. Here, let's reset your handle on the other side to make it easier for that left-handed person who would be using you. Now, I would like to thank you for indulging me again as I use a bit of fantasy to demonstrate this point for our discussion today. Just as my little story demonstrated that the potter is a person who is a creator and is also a responsible person. And this responsible person is willing and able to listen to the thing that he created. And this listening person is open-minded enough to realize that the pitcher pot he created had a valid point which should be considered. To carry on one more bit on this example is the potter is very much like our God in that way. Our God of creation does not hear false efforts. Just won't hear them. But our God will hear your heart. Most of my life, I have been accused of hearing. I have very good hearing. I good hearing. I can listen. I can hear things pretty good. But I've been accused a lot of not listening. Our God hears you, and our God listens to you. And when you are heartfelt and sincere, and when you come to a living God of love and light, with a reasonable, understandably point expressed in a way that is genuine and honest, our God will listen to you. Now, our God may not always do as you like and have requested. Our God does as God will. But our God actually listens to you. And we've had multiple examples of that throughout the Bible. This morning I was reminded that Jesus one time was talking to a Canaanite woman, and the woman came up and asked that Jesus heal her daughter who was ill. And Jesus was not at first inclined to heal the girl. He said that he was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel, but the woman persisted. It says here that the woman came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. He replied, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." Now that's kind of a deep insult right there. He's calling this Canaanite woman not worthy of what he feeds the children. "Yes, Lord," she said, "but even the dog eats the crumbs that falls from their master's table." Then Jesus answered, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." And her daughter was healed from that very hour. This woman used her wit and her clever banter to make her point that her daughter should also be included in Jesus' mercies. Do you also remember Abraham as he pleads, actually bargains with God not to bring total destruction on the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah? Through Abraham's reasoning, he seems to whittle God down a bit. And God eventually saves his wrath, not bringing total destruction on everyone in the city, but allows Abraham's nephew, Lot, and his family to leave. When Abraham says, "How about if there's 50 righteous people, and then 40, 20, 10? God relents and allows Abraham's nephew's family to escape before the cities are devastated. And this back and forth negotiation between Abraham and God saves Lot's family, where they surely would have been destroyed had Abraham not spoken up. And then there's a time when even Jesus' own mother apparently had her way with her son, the Son of God. And this was the scene set at the wedding at Cana. More people apparently had come than were expected, and the host soon ran out of wine. Big embarrassment for the time. The host is supposed to satisfy the needs of the party as long as the party lasts. Well, he ran out of wine, and even though Jesus told his mother that it was not yet his time, his mother insisted. And Jesus relented. And of course turned the great containers of water into wine. And then there's another story, 2 Kings 20, the story of King Hezekiah. And there came a time where the king, who was faithful to the Lord and turned the people back to God, became deathly ill. Enough to where the prophet Isaiah came to tell Hezekiah that his time was nearly up and he should get his house in order because he was about to die. The king pled and prayed to God, asking to let him live. And it turns out that God relented and let him live a good number of years. Now, I do not believe that God will extend the life of everyone who prays for it, but it did seem to work in this case with King Hezekiah. The underlying statement again, the Lord will do as the Lord will. And it's impossible for any of us to really completely understand the mind of God. But even so, we can take some things from these stories. Firstly, that our prayers are heard by God. While the Lord may choose or may not choose to act on them, that remains to be seen. The Lord will do as the Lord wills. But know that your God hears you and listens to you. And even though most people would say God mostly says no, that's not important. What is important is that we come to him. We ask God to intercede in our lives and to hear our cries and to hear our praises and to listen to our shouts of joy and our cries of pain. Because that's who we are. We are who God created. And God is very much interested in your life. Now, his love is so deep, and his understanding is different from ours. Our world is not God's world. We are limited. We are small in years and weak in body, and we are frail. God sees from a perspective of all time. We are limited to just a handful of years. Our forest is the trees of a short lifespan. And we are limited. But God is omnipotent, and God is eternal. So God's perspective includes you, but perhaps not the way you think it should. But still, we can interact with God on our level. Our God bends so low that our words touch his ear. Like Jacob when he wrestled with God because he wanted to be recognized by God. He stood up for what he believed. And again, our perspective is not the Lord's perspective. But yet God blesses us in his pattern, in his weaving of the cosmos. We are a part of it. We may not understand it. We may not like our role in it. But we are a part of God's creation. Who more faithful to God than the Son of God, Jesus, and even his prayers were not answered? When he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, before being betrayed, then he said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." And then going on a little further, he fell on his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." And this coming from God's only begotten Son, the Son of the living God. And God would not give in to Jesus. So don't be surprised if your petitions don't bring what you want, not as I will, but as you will. The lessons we very much need to take home with us today is that never, ever give up on God. God takes too long. God's plans does not fit your schedule. And God won't necessarily fit your schedule. But believe me, you fit God's schedule. You are part of everything. And you are blessed in all things that God does. Whether God does or does not come and meet your perceptions, the important thing is to understand that God is in control, and that is a good thing. If I were the ultimate lawgiver at the Mount of Sinai, I don't know if Moses' words would have appeased me. God promised that I will make you, after I wipe these out, I will make you a great nation even then. So maybe Moses missed an opportunity there, that we would have been created a better person. Perhaps not. But the point is, it wasn't really Moses who changed God's mind. It wasn't Abraham who changed God's mind. It wasn't Mary who changed God's mind. It was God. who allowed the intercession, who allowed a reasonable discourse between the created and the Creator. God listens. God hears you. And God will act if it pleases God, even if it does not please you. We easily say that Jesus freely gave his life for us. That is true. But it's also a human being willing to submit to tremendous torture while being the Son of God. Could have easily ended it with a word, but didn't. Now, I don't know how willing he was, but he did acquiesce. He did as the Father willed. And because of that, we have the salvation, and we have the freedom, and we have a God that accepts the fact that we have doubts, and accepts the fact that we are angered sometimes, and accepts the fact that we are weak when we come to him. God will hear you. God listens to you. God loves you. Amen.